It's a family tradition to sit through the entire film credits every time, and watching Marty Supreme, I noticed something really formally interesting. There are subheadings that split the 50s tracks and the 80s tracks explicitly. But it's not like the film is puritanical about lifting from these eras musically. It uses others, and these are just dumped into the other section. So what makes these two decades important enough to book film credit conventions? The 50s is a no-brainer. It's the film's historical setting, immaculately reconstructed by production designer Jack Fisk. Ergo, the 50s catalogue comes at us diegetically. We hear the 50s tracks as Marty does. In other words, the 50s is the contemporaneity of the film. This speaks for itself, but makes the deliberate association with the 80s all the more evocative. With the credits forming a diptychal relationship between these two decades in particular, it suggests a simultaneous, parallel and equivalent 80s world living alongside Marty's 1950s. Of course, this is the non-diegetic world. More often than not, if the audience hears a song that Marty can't, it's from the 80s. The film constructs an analogous external 80s world in the interstitial spaces between its 50s world. They're woven together like a temporally bicomposite reality. The demarcation between 50s and 80s is between Marty's world and ours, but crucially, both inhabit the film. This anachronistic time zone is depicted textually. It's part of the story. The question remains, why are we in the 80s? We could be the 60s, the 70s, the 90s, the noughties, the 2010s. We could have had Sabrina here.
What do you plan to do if this whole dream of yours doesn't work out?
That doesn't even enter my consciousness.
Maybe it should.
It's because the outward-facing world isn't the audience's, it's the director's. In 80s Marty Supreme, this baby could be Josh Safdie. The colliding time periods represent a stacked analogy of Marty as Josh, and by intertwining these two time periods, and crucially, specifying their exclusivity compared to any others, the two become homophonic. In his own words,
"It was almost pathological dreaming. I'd experienced it on a very intense level chasing my previous film, Uncut Gems,
a film co-directed with his brother Benny as the Safdie brothers,
for 10 years and constantly being told no. And that feeling I had when I finished, it was not so much a celebratory feeling, it was a hollow feeling. I looked around and I realised that I was in such a lonely place. I sacrificed my life for that film. After I finished Gems, and I had that hollow feeling, next thing you know, I went to City Hall, we got married, have a kid, and have another kid. And that feeling when I met my first daughter, it was a cosmic feeling. Having a kid is like Marty's one dream had to end so the other could begin. It's seeing Marty actually go from boy to man.
The film's 80s needle drops aren't just an arbitrary or superfluous choice, or just because they're straight heat, but an act of translation of a universal emotion from one context to another. Its bipolar musical identity enacts a bridging effect between two realities, tethered by this cosmic feeling that transcends historical boundaries.
I believe the movie is a little bit about seeing your parents before you were born. Like seeing pictures of them and thinking, what was going on there? What was their purpose? Well, I was their purpose. There's a lot of mystery in those photographs. You're very sculptable in youth. And when you have a child, I think a part of you hardens. It just does.
If Marty's ending is this point of hardening, then the entire film lives in this era of sculptability. That transition from freshly fertilized egg to table tennis ball at the outset of the film represents the two nascent parallel trajectories of Marty Mauser. As a character, Marty is the ultimate shapeshifter. He's the hustler's Terminator. There's a moment upon losing to Endo in the finals of the London Open where for a brief moment, Marty collapses in defeat. For a split second, he responds mortally as a proportionate human and feels this loss, but then explodes back to life with the assertion that the match was unfair. He deserves a rematch because of paddle advantage. It's an electric encapsulation of Marty Machine. We see him instinctively react to the loss, and then his weapon systems come back online to try and reshape the narrative to one in which he didn't lose. This hypnotic mechanism of denial defines the character and the film. The Harlem Globetrotters gig is beneath him until it's working with the greatest athletes on the planet. Marty's ability to rewrite reality is so violent that when Rockwell echoes Marty's own vaudeville show sentiment, he goes for the jugular as if killing his own past self. He is eternally reconstructing his own social mobility in front of him, like Gromit with the box of rail. Computationally, he's programmed with the prime directive that he is the world table tennis champion and will terraform reality and truth to match. Marty is the physical manifestation of the prophetic perfect tense inside a book of which he is not the author. He is like the Hydra of Until the Wheels Fall Off. One wheel falls off, two more take its place. The second that Marty finds out he's being fined $1,500 and expelled from participating in Tokyo, his bath spontaneously crashes through the floor and onto the arm that just placed down a duffel bag of hard cash, as if in response, destiny increased the gravity of the bath to crowdfund. But while he is grommeting, there's a parallel train track of fatherhood, which from the film's opening moments won't be stopped. The sperm sequence starts the clock on the last 9 months of Marty's life as this self-nomadic character who can reshape himself and the world around him at will. The egg and ball are the symbols of Marty's two warring destinies, the bifurcating fork in the road, one path from which he's yanked from and tied in knots across the narrative. This starting point in the shoe shop basement sets the clock to the 11th hour, the entire film taking place in the 60 minutes to midnight before he is ultimately set in stone once and for all. Marty Supreme catalogues a relentless raging against the dying of the light, the death rattle of an elasticity imminently approaching its ossification. Whilst Marty ultimately never earns $1 from professional table tennis, disqualified from the Tokyo Championship, his rematch against Endo nevertheless marks a vindicating resolution to this era of his life. After all, the metamorphosis of Marty's hardening into a father takes place within his own sense of self. As such, ever the gambler, Marty doubles down on his dream by foregoing the payment from Rockwell in favour of the final authentic chance to defeat Endo. Winning this game functions as a rewriting of the record, of the history of the London Open. Marty beating Endo is a confirmation that although the road to table tennis champion is now closed to him forever, he would win. Beating Endo, no matter how irrelevant in posterity to the wider world of the sport, in a piddly show match for a pen company, beating Endo proves he is the best. And in true prophetic perfect tense fashion, this in of itself is tantamount to winning the championship. Marty, knowing it's his last chance, sets the path to champion straight, despite knowing he can never walk on it. In this moment, his victory is extrapolated to a certain future. This may as well be the Tokyo final. It represents as much. And while Safdie's autobiographical cosmic moment may happen in the final shot holding his baby, Marty's Pyrrhic metamorphosis occurs first on that Rockwell Inc. stage in Tokyo. The fundamental shift takes place the second he scores that 20-second point, and mirroring Endo's earlier collapse to the floor, Marty drops to the ground in pure instinctual euphoria, and Marty Machine falls away in the process. When Marty hits that deck, he is human once more. He hugs Endo in tears and returns to New York to tell Rachel he loves her with no hustle in his heart. His Swiss Army identity was only ever a function of facilitating his ascent to champion, and so touching that zenith, albeit just for a second, and with no more track left in the box, he is crystallized into flesh and blood. As the klaxon sounds on the era of Marty Supreme, the hardening accompanies cosmic trepidation and pride, but all the while, although history will not remember it, and though just for a moment he was Marty Supreme,